Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, upon further review, Scott Turner is going to make one hell of an offensive coordinator. So, if you're a patron on Patreon, first of all, let me thank you for your patronage. But secondly, we've had a chance to dissect the film. I put up damn near 2 hours worth of offensive film breakdown. A lot of good stuff in there. So if you're not a patron, get in the game, okay? Don't miss out on this extra content that allows you to get inside the game and actually see what's going on Sundays with this football team. Nonetheless, I broke down the play calling on Sunday, and, it was a slow start. I'm not going to lie. I talked about the lack of aggressiveness early in the game. I talked about some of the things that I did not like with the play calling early, but I thought towards the end of the first half, into the second half, I thought Scott Turner was outstanding. And there's a tweet, as you can see up on the board there, that JP Finley put out about Scott Turner's use of emotion in week one. And, if you watch the film breakdown, how many times did I say, all right, they're sending Steven Sims in motion, and it was a lot of jet sweep motion, or I'd say they're sending Logan Thomas in motion. There was a lot of motion. I can't remember many snaps where some form of motion didn't take place. And so I think motion is essential in this league. If you want to really disrupt the defense, give them something extra to think about. If you really want to give the defense some eye candy, send guys in motion. They've got to bump. They've got to shift. They've got to communicate. That's how you get a guy wide open for the very first touchdown of the season. Logan Thomas back of the end zone, not an eagle in sight. Why? Because they sent Steven Sims in motion, and the Eagles failed to communicate. Guys are shuffling around, pointing. Nobody picked. How many times have we seen Washington over the years? Down in the red zone. Guy goes in motion, and someone ends up wide open in the end zone, not a Washington football member in sight. How many times have we seen that? And then you hear at the end of the game, it was a lack of communication. Duh. But that's what motion can do. It can confuse you. It can give the defense something to think about. It can slow down a guy's reactionary time, because, again, if a guy's thinking, he's not reacting. He's not playing at his full capacity and speed. So I love the fact that Washington was third in the league on Sunday in week one with motions behind the Rams and the Patriots. That, to me, is an awesome stat, and I think it's something that we're going to continue to see throughout the season with Scott Turner. And like I said, if you watch the film breakdown, he was extraordinary with his play calling. I thought there were some great designs within the game plan, and I also thought there were some well-timed bootlegs and different plays that were called throughout the course of the game that really helped this offense. And, if we get everybody on one accord, I think this offense could be really good. Now, there's some tweaks and some things that need to be done in the run game, but I even thought some of the runs that he called were effective runs that just weren't blocked all that well. There were a couple of runs I was like, I wouldn't have done that if I were you, but it's nor here nor there. Again, hindsight's 2020, but I'm here to tell you, Scott Turner did a hell of a job in week one. I'm excited to see what Scott Turner has in store for this offense. And once we get AGG off the ground and going, I think this offense can be even better, because I think he's going to, and I talked about this in the film, I think he's going to take the place of Logan Thomas in some of these 11 personnel formations. I think they're going to go with a 10 personnel instead of 11. We'll see. I could be wrong. They could like Logan Thomas on the field that much. But I think in some of those situations where they're actually going 4 wide instead of 3 wide and a tight end, I think you could see AGG taking his spot. But we talked about that on the film as well. Again, if you're not on Patreon, get on Patreon so you can get this content and not miss out. But let's get to in other news. And before we dive knee deep into in other news, because Jack Del Rio, our defensive coordinator, stepped up to the podium, as did head coach Ron Rivera, I first want to make sure I mention this because I'll forget. Washington released over the last 2 days cornerback Simeon Thomas and tight end Hale Hinches to free up 2 spots on the roster, on the practice squad, that is, so that they could go out and sign a couple of guys that worked out on Tuesday. Remember, there was a big tryout on Tuesday. A bunch of guys came in. A lot of you were excited about Hakeem Butler. Well, they opted to sign wide receiver Jeff Badette instead, the ex-Oklahoma Sooner, and tight end Tamarick Hemingway, who was on the practice squad of the Carolina Panthers last year. So once again, similar to Marcus Ball, another guy another guy Ron Rivera was comfortable with from Carolina that was on the practice squad. They're bringing here at the tight end position as insurance on this roster, so that if anything happens to the 3 tight ends already on the roster, a guy like Tamarick Hemingway will be able to be activated to the active roster. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before I forgot. Let's get to the injury report. We didn't do this yesterday. We were supposed to do this, but we failed to do this. That's my fault. So today, let's clean up the injury report for both teams. Let's take a look. And we start with our team, the Washington football team. Yesterday and today's report are exactly the same. Cole Holcomb, we talked about his knee. He was limited yesterday, limited again today. If I had to guess, I'd say Cole Holcomb's going to miss this football game, but that's going to be okay. Why is that okay? Because Thomas Davis Sr. and his calf muscle practiced fully yesterday, practiced again fully today. More likely than not, he's trending towards playing on Sunday. So if Cole Holcomb is out, Thomas Davis Sr. will be up, and we should still be fine on the linebacker position. Now the question becomes special teams. Thomas Davis Sr. is not a core special teamer like he once was. So that's something else that they would have to take a look at. But Kendall Fuller, his knee, full practice on Wednesday, full practice again on Thursday. So again, another guy that looks like he's going to be a full go. I can't remember, and I'm going to knock on some wood here. I think there's some wood around here somewhere. I believe this is wood. We're just going to go with that being a little bit of wood, because I can't remember the last time we were this healthy. Literally only 3 guys on the injury report, and 2 of them have practiced fully all week long. Hopefully it stays that way. We really sustained no injuries in last week's game. Let's hope that we continue down this path. So you look at the injuries for the Cardinals, not any noticeable nor notable names here. You look at Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins and you get excited. Don't get excited, because as you can see, those guys had non-injury related absences from practice on Wednesday. They were both back on Thursday, full participants. They're playing on Sunday. There are going to be no shortcuts for this one. But you look at the rest of the guys on this list. Offensive lineman Mason Cole, who is a center. He's an interior offensive lineman, but more so than anything else, he's a center. He's not going to play. You can see his hamstring is acting up. He didn't practice on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday. He's going to be out. Again, they're going to be just fine. Linebacker Kyle Fitz didn't practice Wednesday, was limited Thursday. He may be out. Jalen Thompson, their safety, has an ankle injury, didn't practice Wednesday, went full practice on Thursday. We'll see, or excuse me, he's on the IR now, so he's out of the game. But again, they weren't going to be heavily relying on him. Max Williams, their tight end. Now that's a notable name. He's probably one of their more athletically gifted tight ends. So you're probably going to see a lot more of Troy Nicholas, which I'm fine with. He's got an ankle injury, didn't practice on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday. He's trending towards not playing, which would definitely be a help on Sunday. And then offensive lineman Josh Jones, who they just drafted in the 3rd round, or maybe it was the 4th round of this past year's draft, out of Houston, has an ankle injury, limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Interesting to see what his status is on Friday, and that will give us an indication as to whether he will be able to go or not. But again, none of these are earth-shattering names. All of these are guys that they can survive without. So we'll see what happens. It's not like last week with Philadelphia, where they had some big, heavyweight names on their injury report. That's not the case here for the Arizona Cardinals. So let's get back to in other news, where Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio stepped up to the podium, and I want to talk about what these guys had to say. So when you look at these two, and their conversation with the media. I first want to start with Rivera. I thought he had some interesting things to say in regards to defending Kyler Murray. He talked about how, rush lane integrity, those types of things. He said it's not just up to the front seven, though. The back end is going to have to do their job as well, because it's going to take the entire defense to corral this guy and to keep him in check. He wouldn't go into particulars, as he shouldn't, as to how they're going to defend him. Neither did Jack Del Rio, again, as he shouldn't. But they both did hint that this is a guy that they're well aware of, and that they're going to have to do some special things to keep him in check. Not allowing guys behind you, Rivera talked about that. He specifically singled out Ronald Darby and said, hey, look, I thought the defense did some really good things. We only had one really critical error defensively the entire game. And he's talking about one in particular because the Eagles completed that. But there were more opportunities there. And Rivera acknowledged that, but he said, look, those things happen in the course of a game. Guys miss opportunities, things of that nature. They hit the 3rd and 22, though. And he said, the next time they tried it with Deshaun Jackson, Darby was there and almost picked it off. So he knows better. He knows what he's supposed to do. He said, look, you can't go for the comeback. You can't go for the dig route. You can't go for the out. You can't be, or the stop. He said, you can't be ready to jump and stop your feet, which I talked about on the film study on the defensive side of the football, that you can't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Darby did. And he didn't the second time around, especially when it's 3rd and forever. The Jalen Reagor 55-yarder, that was 3rd and 22. Like, you shouldn't be too antsy to jump anything on 3rd and 22. Your first initiative is get off the field. Don't give up, 25 on 3rd and 22. Don't give up 55 on 3rd and 22. You'll give up 15. You'll give up 20 on 3rd and 22. Okay? Just don't give up 70. And he almost did. So Rivera talked about not allowing guys behind you in coverage and singled out Darby there. He talked about the offense versus the defense and how the offense is, it's lagging behind. He said that's to be expected. A lot of nuances to the offensive side. He said defense, and I've said this to you guys, defense is much easier to jump in and play. And he said defense is more plug and play. It's not hard. It's only so many ways you can play cover 3. There's only so many ways you can play cover 2. There's only so many ways you can play man. You may infuse a little bit of a blitz on one side, maybe a little bit of a zone on the other side. But there's only so many ways you can change up coverages and looks, okay? Like, it's not rocket science on the defensive side of the football. Now, on the offensive side, there are many variations. There are many different things you can do. And there are different formations, different shifts, different things that you have to be able to understand. There's different tags. There's different, checks, and there's different adjustments to the looks you may get pre-snap or at the line of scrimmage. You may come out and say, okay, they're giving us this look. Well, if they give us this look, my read is here. If they're giving us this look, my read is over here. If they're giving us this look, then my read is here. So a lot of nuances to the offense, not as many to the defense. So obviously the defense is ahead of the offense, and that was to be expected before the season started. He talked about Logan Thomas. He said, Ron's favorite line when regarding Logan Thomas is, hey, this guy hasn't played a lot of tight end. We've heard it heard it all before. We heard it all before from Ron. But Logan was impressive. I talked about it on the film breakdown. I've talked about it on numerous shows. Logan Thomas was impressive in his Washington football debut. I was thoroughly impressed with what he was able to provide for the team. He was a huge part of that 27-17 victory. Looking forward to seeing him continue to develop at the tight end position. And then he also talked about not really thinking you're ever going to see a traditional drop back pocket passer come out of college in the future. I think he's right. I think the days of that guy is pretty much all but dead. You got to have some semblance of athleticism as a collegiate quarterback coming to the NFL. The league is really trending away from the guys that aren't mobile. I think a great example of that is Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason, not the best athlete in the world, but a big arm, and teams weren't even sniffing his way. I don't think he got selected until, I want to say, the 4th round by the Indianapolis Colts. It may have been a 3rd round pick. Either way, this is a guy that a lot of people thought was highly talented and skilled, and if he got in the right system, could be a beast. And no one was even checking for him. I mean, a guy like Jalen Hurts, who, showed some things in college, but, he's got a long way to go in his development as a quarterback, got taken in the second round. Why? Because he's a mobile quarterback that can move and extend plays. And I think that's what teams are coveting and valuing right now is the ability of a quarterback to be able to move. So I think Ron was right in his assessment about the future of the quarterback position and how it's trending away from pocket passers, traditional pocket passers like Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers, and trending towards guys that are mobile like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. And there's still always going to be guys like, Patrick Mahomes, who isn't necessarily a runner, but if you give him an opportunity, he will run, but he's more adept at extending the play, like a Russell Wilson or like an Aaron Rodgers type. So I think Ron was pretty much spot on there. And then on Sadiq Charles, Ron said to J.P. Finley's question, which was, hey, Sadiq Charles is no longer on the injury report. He's out there practicing. Just wanted to know if he was competing for a chance to start at left tackle, or are you satisfied with what you're getting from Jaron Christian? And to that, Ron responded, he's off, meaning he's off the injury list. He's practicing, meaning he's out there and he's practicing, and he's competing. Ron kept it real short, simple, and sweet. It was a funny moment. He laughed, J.P. Finley. He told J.P., you're always asking tough questions, and they all shared a laugh. It was a pretty funny moment of the presser. So that was Ron Rivera and his Thursday presser. You get to Jack Del Rio, and JDR pretty much talked about a number of different things. These were the things that I thought were most pertinent. He talked about Cameron Curl. And remember, Cameron Curl played in 22 snaps on Sunday, the second most of any rookie on the team after, of course, Chase Young. So this is a guy that they have a lot of confidence in Cameron Curl, and he played well. I talked about that on the film breakdown. He was impressive, Cameron Curl was. And so they like him. Del Rio said he earned his way onto the field. And he said, look, I don't care how you get here, Del Rio said. Whether you were undrafted, they traded for you, you were a late round draft pick, you were an early draft pick. I don't care how you got here. Just perform and you'll get on the field. And he said Cameron Curl has done that throughout camp and is now doing that in the game as well. He talked about how to attack Kyler Murray. He didn't get into specifics, as he shouldn't, but he said, yeah, it's going to be a hell of a task, but we're going to be up to it, but it's going to take the entire 11 guys on the field at once working together in synchronicity to get the job done, and he's 100% spot on about that. He talked about KPL's play. He loves him some Kevin Pierre-Louis, and a lot of you were dogging the linebackers in last week's game. I'm here to tell you that they weren't that bad, okay? A lot of you were like, man, the linebackers were horrible. And Del Rio talked about the one play that KPL gave up, and KPL made some really good plays. I vividly remember a 3rd and 4 on an out route or a 3rd and 6 on an out route, and he tackles Dallas Goedert for a 2-yard gain and brings up, it was a 2nd and 6, excuse me. And he tackles Dallas Goedert for a 2-yard gain on what would have been a turn up the field first down. It was an immediate tackle by KPL on Mason Foster or one of these guys that we've had in the past. He would have turned the corner, or Will Compton, any of these guys. He would have turned the corner on them and got up the field and got a gain of 12 and a first down. But KPL was right there to clean him up and make it 3rd and 4. So, he talked about the one play that KPL gave up, the touchdown to Dallas Goedert and one-on-one coverage. Apke should have been over the top there, but that's nor here nor there. KPL got beat off the line of scrimmage, and Del Rio said, yeah, he was poor in his technique there. He knows what he did wrong. I don't expect that to happen many more times. And so he said, yeah, I love what this guy brings to the table, and I think he's going to get even better. So he's really high on Kevin Pierre-Louis. I thought he had a really solid showing. He wasn't great in week 1, but I thought he was really good and really solid in week number 1. And then he talked about the Cardinals' air raid attack. And he said, look, Cliff Kingsbury's air raid attack is really centered around wearing you down, getting a high volume number of plays and trying to wear you down at the end of the game. And so he said it's imperative that we continue to rotate our guys and keep them fresh. You know what also helps? If you get off the field on third downs, then you don't have to worry about them having up tempo and a bunch of snaps and running your guys into the ground and worrying whether you can get a guy off the field subbing wise because they're going at such high rate of speed. If you get off the field on third downs, you kill all of that. If the ball hits the ground on an incompletion, you stop the momentum. It's when they get completions, it's when they're able to get a solid gain. That's when they like to change the tempo. That's when they like to get into a rhythm. So if you can have incompletions, if you can have third down stops, you'll bust up their rhythm and slow down that air raid attack. So that was Del Rio in a nutshell. Now let's get to behind enemy lines. I think I might have forgotten to change something here. Let's take a look. Yep. No, we're good. So we're behind enemy lines now. And what I want to focus on today is the Arizona Cardinals offensively and defensively. Talk about some keys to the game, what needs to be done, and how to go about doing them. So first thing I want to talk about is the Cardinals offense versus the Washington defense, because I think that's the main event. You know, that's what everybody's showing up to see. This Cardinals high octane offense versus the all of a sudden ever so popular Washington football defense. And Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan, the defensive player of the week. Daron Payne, Matt Ioannidis and his 1.5 sacks from a week ago. Jonathan Allen and company. They want to see what this defense, who harassed Carson Wentz, picked him off twice, forced him to fumble twice, and sacked him 8 times. What are they going to do against this offense? So the first thing, obviously, without even needing to be mentioned, is Kyler Murray. He's this focal point of this offense. As he goes, so does this offense. To me, he's a guy that is really dynamic and fun to watch because he is so unique in how he plays the game. But as I mentioned yesterday, and we'll elaborate on that today, he's a guy that isn't going to stand back there all day like Carson Wentz did last week. He's looking to get rid of the football, and he's going to go through about 2 progressions, maybe 3 at most. But really, he's looking to go first read. That's not there. Second read, if that's not there. If the check down's not there, he's bailing. He's not sticking around and trying to see if his fourth read is going to come free, or if somebody's going to on a reactionary move pop open. He's looking to get the hell out of Dodge. And so they've got to do a really good job of understanding that the play's never over with this guy, number one. Number two, you've got to stay plastered to your receiver, because if you come off of him, Murray's one of these guys that will attack the line of scrimmage, you attack him, and then he throws it right over your head to the guy that you just left. So you got to stay plastered to your guy until he passed the line of scrimmage, and then you go after him. And he's not looking to juke you. He's not looking to try to make you look silly. He's looking to get down. So if you approach him and he feels threatened, he'll slide, okay? But if he feels like you're coming at a high rate of speed and he can make you miss, he will. But with Murray, I think I don't want to overblow the Kyler Murray angle. He's a really good football player. He's huge, but there are other guys on this team that make this offense go as well. He's the focal point. Don't get it wrong, and don't get it twisted, and don't get me wrong. However, there's also Larry Fitzgerald, and there's also DeAndre Hopkins, and there's also Kenyon Drake that you need to concern yourself with. And don't forget about Christian Kirk and some of the other weapons that they have on this football team as well. I think where the real matchups that you need to be focused in on this week are our secondary versus their wide receivers, because I think that they have a distinct advantage over our secondary this week. Where last week I felt confident about our defense against the Eagles receivers. I told you that last week. I wasn't afraid of not a single one of them. Not even Deshaun Jackson was I afraid of last week. I said they got a lot of speed, but they're inexperienced and they're soft. I wasn't afraid of the Eagles receivers last week. I'm terrified, mortified about the matchup this week between our secondary and their wide receivers. Now, our secondary has shown us that they can be better, but now you're inserting Kendall Fuller. What is he like? What is he going to play like? How does he come in and mesh with what we did a week ago? That's another guy you're adding into the mix. You can never have enough bodies. I'm not complaining about him being healthy. However, you're going to need all hands on deck this week. But how does Washington attack this air raid attack? Because Arizona's going to spread you out. They're going to put 3-4 receivers on the field at a time. And are you going to combat that by taking off some of your linebackers and sticking on a couple more corners? Or are you going to try to stay in your base? I guess it all depends on the personnel that you see from Arizona, and that will dictate what they do. But I think this week, I think Del Rio is going to be looking at a lot of 6 defensive back packages where you're looking at either 3 safeties and 3 corners, or you're looking at 2 safeties and 4 corners on the field. And I think that's where the real matchup is. How does the secondary adjust to what these guys are able to do? Because you can't put a linebacker on Larry Fitzgerald, and you can't put a linebacker on DeAndre Hopkins nor Christian Kirk. You don't want to allow these guys to have a free run at it. I think you've got to assign them corners, and I think you're going to, and that's going to open up the run game. And they've got a talented running back there in Kenyon Drake. And so if you allow them to spread you out, you overreact to them spreading you out, and you put 6 DBs on the field, and then they run it, and they get a gaping hole, you could be in some trouble with a bunch of DBs on the field. So, it's a chess match. It's a bit of an interesting dilemma that they'll have. And I want to see if Del Rio is as aggressive this week. That's another thing I'm going to be watching for, because last week he was uber aggressive from start to finish. Even when we were giving up big play opportunities, Del Rio never took his foot off the gas pedal. I want to see if he keeps that same energy this week with Kyler Murray and his explosiveness at the quarterback position. Does he continue to bring the house against a guy that can hurt you if he's able to break that first wave of defenders? So I think it's going to be interesting, our secondary against their wide receivers, because I think they're going to neutralize our pass rush by getting rid of the football. I listened to their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, talk about our defensive line so profusely. So much praise that you're like, hey, you Bill Belichick in me right now. Like, stop with your Jedi mind tricks. I'm not falling for your nonsense. He was so overly effusive with praise that I said, yeah, okay. You're fattening us up, all right? Or as a wise man once said, you're fattening frogs for snakes. I'm not dumb, man. I know what you're doing over there. They're getting rid of the football quickly. And so it's going to be up to our secondary to be able to disrupt the timing and rhythm of those quick game throws and be able to knock down a couple of those passes and not consistently allow these guys to get 5 and 6 and continue to move the chains. And as I mentioned, get into a rhythm and make it tough on this defense to get off the field. They're going to have to be able to get into these receivers and make it tough to complete these short passes, because they're going to try to run quick game against this defensive line to neutralize the pass rush. And I also think it's important that Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, and Jonathan Allen, and Deron Payne, and Matt Ioannidis, and all these guys get their hands up in the pass lane. There are going to be a lot of quick throws. Kyler Murray is a small quarterback. He's 5'11", 6 feet max. I think he's 5'11", personally, okay? He's a short guy. We've got big defensive linemen. Get your hands up and see if you can't bat a ball in the air and potentially get it picked off. So I think getting your hands up is going to be imperative in this game because of the quick passing game. You're not going to be able to get to Murray all that often, I don't think. And because of that, I think it is imperative that they get their hands up and try to affect the game in other ways. And, oh, by the way, stop the run. Let's not give them a crutch to lean on. Force them to have to beat us through the air, not on the ground. When you get to the offensive side of the football for the Washington football team versus the Cardinals defense, this is a group that they can do a number of different things. I think they're going to take their best corner in Patrick Peterson and assign him, similar to what the Eagles did. They're going to take the blueprint that the Eagles had with Terry McLaurin and their corner last week, Darius Slay, and they're going to just take Patrick Peterson and assign him to Terry McLaurin. And everywhere that Terry goes, he's going to have Pat P in his back pocket. So that's going to be a matchup worth eyeballing. But I think you're going to have Steven Sims step up this week. I think that's the guy that can hurt, because the Cardinals struggled last week over the middle of the football field. I talked about the big touchdown that they gave up to Raheem Mostert on an arrow route over the middle of the field. That means J.D. McKissic can eat this week. That means that Logan Thomas may be able to do some things this week. That means that Steven Sims should be able to do some things over the middle of the football field. That's where the Cardinals struggled a week ago, over the middle of the football field. That's where San Francisco had their most success. I think that they need to attack the middle of the football field, and not just with the running backs, not just with the tight ends, but with Steven Sims as well. So I think that's a situation that you take a look at and try to exploit. But also, they got some guys that can get after the quarterback. Most notably, they have Chandler Jones. And we have to have a better better production from the left side of our offensive line than we did last week, especially Wes Martin. They don't have any beasts necessarily on their defensive line on the interior, but he's got to be better than he was a week ago. And Jaron Christian is going up against a masterful pro, a guy that knows how to get it done. He's going to have to play some of his best brand of football, or it could get ugly for Dwayne rather quickly. That is a guy that does scare me, and that's someone that we may have to add an extra tight end or a back in protection, or on the way out that tight end chips, or on the way out that running back chips, just to keep Chandler Jones in check, because he is a one-man wrecking crew and he can affect the game. So I think we're going to have to do a better job of running the football too. I didn't think we were good enough in that department. And I think they're going to have to find creative ways to do it. I think we're going to see a Steven Sims jet sweep this week. We didn't see one last week. He went in ghost motion a million times, never actually got the football. They did, however, hand the football to Antonio Gibson in jet sweep motion once before. But I think we're going to see Sims get it one of these times. And I also think there's an opportunity for one of those wide receiver screens that we like to throw. I think there's an opportunity for that to pop against Arizona. We need to be able to block that up, though. Guys need to be able to execute. I think there's a big play on a wide receiver screen potentially in this game if we can execute it and everybody execute their blocks properly. I think there's an opportunity for a big play in the pass game via the wide receiver screen. Obviously, turnovers are key. Got to try to win the turnover battle. But if we can just do what we did last year and protect the football, we're going to have a chance on the road to go and steal one from the Arizona Cardinals. This should be a really fascinating game. I'll tell you this much. We're going to find out a lot about our defense, because it's easy when you know where the quarterback's going to be and and you know his zip code and in the general vicinity of where you can find him, like last week with Carson Wentz. Wentz is mobile, but he's not looking to run, okay? Kyler Murray's looking to run, okay? So you don't necessarily know where he's going to be. And that can be problematic. And I'll take it a step further. They're going to get rid of the football. They're going to throw it quickly. The Eagles allowed Wentz to drop back, and we know Wentz loves to hold on to the football because in his mind, no play is ever over, and he thinks he can salvage every play, so that's how you get sacked 8 times. Murray isn't holding on to the football. Murray isn't standing back there so you can get to him and sack him. They're going to get rid of the football, or he's going to run. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the defense reacts to a little bit of adversity when they can't hit home. When they can't get to Kyler Murray, he's frustrating them because he's getting rid of the football in the quick passing game, or he's taking off and running, or he's throwing the football away. If you're not able to get to him, how do they find other ways to impact the game? That's what I want to see from this defense. So this is going to be a fun one. Can't wait. Bart Scott, can't wait. You'll get my prediction for this game on tomorrow's episode of Washington Football Nightly. But for now, that's going to do it for this installment of Washington Football Nightly. I thank you guys for joining me as always. Can't wait to read your comments as to what you think are some of the keys to the game against the Arizona Cardinals. And tomorrow, I can't wait to read your predictions for this game, score, and more. We'll do that tomorrow. But again, if you're not a member of Patreon, what are you waiting on? Become a patron and get this bonus content. And I think what I'm ultimately going to do, if I have time, I'm going to do a small breakdown of the Arizona Cardinals offense, give you a little taste of what we have in store for us so that you see what the challenges will be for this team on Sunday. I'll see if I have time to be able to get to that, but we'll see down the road. But in any event, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. I'm your man, Louie T, and this has been Washington Football Nightly. I'll see you guys tomorrow, or I'll see you tonight for Thursday Night Football Overtime. Until then, take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30.